Welcome back to Combe TV with a difference. It's season 2. We did 100 episodes, started way back in the pandemic. We're going a little bit different from now on in season 2. It's going to be a mixed bag. There will be some live shows, but there's also going to be recorded podcast episodes, behind the scenes. Just wait and see. We've got all sorts that are going to be lined up. But delighted to kick off this show with a very special guest with amazing things to discuss, from his racing career to his film career, that has also broken records here at Castle Combe Circuit. We're going to have a chat today with Craig Dolby. So welcome back to Combe TV. Craig, first of all.
Nice to meet you.
I've commentated on you many a time here, and it's always fun and always ridiculously fast.
Yeah, well, that's how we like it. We like it fast around Combe. You know, this place is special for me. Ever since Nigel kind of let me drive all of his cars here, going back to the Riley. Wow, it's just a raw circuit. You know, I don't think you get many places like this now in motorsport. You know, everywhere's got tarmac everywhere and you know, a bit soft, whereas here it's raw. It's like, as a driver, you experience the speed still. You experience, you know, you can't run off and get away with it. You have to be precise, and you know, and then going to the fans as well. That's special on a bank holiday weekend. You see the fans here and interact with them all. It's just a lovely feeling. It
is, and people who know me know that that's what I've grown up with as well, and yeah. I absolutely adore it. So I hear you there, and it's the challenge this place has got is that whilst, yes, everything needs to modernise, you can't throw baby out with the water, can you? You've got to retain its charm.
I think that's what I like about here, is like, you know, it moves with the times, but still when you get that helmet on and go onto the track, you've still got tarmac, curb, grass, yeah. You know, how it should be. You know, there's no track limits, there's no, you know, to worry about. You just go as fast as you can to what you get given. Yeah. And you know, that's a raw racetrack for me, and I get the pleasure to come here and just luckily drive Nigel Mussel's cars around and to the best of my ability.
Which has been some amazing pieces. You mentioned the Riley, we've seen you in that Volvo thing you had, wasn't that a central Volvo, drive position?
Yeah, that one Spa 12-hour back in its day. That was an awesome bit of kit.
Didn't Nigel get rid of that, and then he got, I'm sure it's another one, not just another
one, yeah. Yeah, he got another one.
Because he knew that it was a wicked car.
Yeah, it was a fun car to drive. It was fast. It was, you know, fairly easy as well to get to a point. Right. To get the extra out of it was a bit on the limit.
You thought that, especially it was the pale blue one when I spoke to you about this, the first one, and you were adamant that you could break the 60-second barrier in it.
Yeah, I think on the right day, right kind of track temps, right traffic, right kind of tyre, you know, there is a sub 1 minute, and I'll say there is because that's still in my mind, possible in whatever I get given, hopefully this year. You know, but you know, that's the challenge for me, is like, you know, to be able to come here after work, or, you know, if you're in a busy work year and I get to come here, this is my release, this is my fun, you know, I get to come here and play and entertain, and that's a big part of what makes me tick.
Which I can testify to, having interviewed you post-race here as well. You're just like a kid in a sweet shop.
Yes, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I am lucky enough to know Nigel, and not only on a motorsport basis, but a personal and a friend basis, and for him to trust me to come and drive some of his cars around here, and not just go, oh yeah, just drive it around and just do a job. He's like, go and get the record. And it's like, and that for me is something really cool, because, you know, not many people kind of give people that opportunity, let alone to go as hard as you can. But and you know, it has caught me out. There's been a few, especially in the Lambo, a few wing mirrors have been taken in the last year and a bit.
They're luxury extras.
But you know, like, I am pushing, you know, that's the thing. I come here and it's a release for me as well. You know, I get to let my hair down and come and have some fun. And you know, so I always like like to come here and have a bit of fun here.
And I mean, just before we move on to the lap record moment last year, which I know is weird, the direction I'm going, but I want to start with that because that's relevant to here as we're talking about it. And then we're going to talk about your racing career to your amazing film career that is going to probably take up the bulk of this because it's, cool stuff that you've done. But the Lamborghini,
yep.
that was Nigel's as well?
Yes, that was Nigel's as well, yeah.
So, again, Nigel, letting you drive these things, pushing you hard to go and get those records. And I've watched you two. You are not just like friends. He's like an adopted father and you're his adopted son type feel to that one.
Yeah, anyone that asks, I always say Nigel is my second dad.
Yeah.
He's looked after me for so many years in racing and allowed me to drive so many cars when I wouldn't have got the opportunity. And we've just grown really, really close. And, he looks after, my parents come along and they bring in pork pies because I'm from Melton Mowbray. And, that relationship between all of us as a group, down to Kate as well, his daughter, the whole of us just get on as one big family. And I think that alone is something special. But then his Lambo round here was pretty cool.
Because that was an old car. Let me just double check. Lamborghini Gallardo GT3 EX.
Yes. So I think
to be precise,
it was a 2014 car. If I get this wrong, Nigel will correct me.
Yeah.
I think it was 2014 car. And so obviously it's not all got the mod cons of a current GT3 car. So to bring that here and push it to try and get the lap record is tricky. Don't get me wrong, it's like on a knife edge around here, but that's the enjoyment we get. I mean, you could give me a Ford Fiesta around here and I'd be having fun with a massive smile on my face. I absolutely love it. And, but that Lambo around here was good. And, we got to a point where we did get the lap record. We've now lost it by a 10th. But I'm coming back.
I do remember interviewing you when you broke it the first time. So it was on Howard's Day, Easter Monday, that you broke it. Now, this was a lap record that had stood since 2002, Mike Jordan, when the British GTs were racing back here.
Yeah.
The Power Tour and all those halcyon days. So, and we're now talking, so last year being 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible amount of time that stood for you to at last take it.
Yeah, I think, it shows how good the cars were as well back then.
Doesn't it?
Drivers, obviously, how good they were driving around here. And I think as well now with balance of performance in these GT cars, everyone sees it as a Lambo, but you've got to remember these cars have always been equalised now. So the development isn't probably as much as what people might think.
Yeah.
So back in the day in GTs, it was like, right, here's your car, develop it and make it go faster, to a set of regulations. Now, it's like all the manufacturers go to the balance of performance test and they all get level.
Someone had to mention Bob then, didn't they?
It's a frustrating part of my life, like my career, my end of my career, when everything was balance of performance was so difficult because if you're in the wrong car in the wrong year and it doesn't quite work,
because sometimes it doesn't feel fair, some of them.
It doesn't. I mean, there's stories and I can go on all day long, but we were in Russia once in a race and I qualified last. They realised they got BOP wrong, plugged a computer in. The following day I set fastest lap in the race. But because I qualified last, that was our whole weekend all the way to Russia, gone. And that's how easy, and unfortunately it's no one's fault. It's just, how do you balance all the cars at every circuit, every air condition, turbos, non-turbos? There's so much to do and it's an endless game they're playing.
And it's all too easy. I've been involved, like doing, say, the interviews down in the pit lanes, and you're always going to have someone's upset because they'll feel it's being unfair to them. And if you looked under the surface, it's very easy to cast aspersions, but you're then, who'd have thought politics in motorsport anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Never.
No, we go back to the enjoyment. And that's what
Exactly
I like here.
that.
I like here because we can bring a soft set of tyres. We can bring, tweak a little bit of what we want to do. And it's not like, right, you've got this set of tyres, you've got this. Here we can go, right, okay, let's try and break that record. Let's, what's the incentive? As much as coming here and having fun with Nigel, but in my head, I'm like, right, how can I break that lap record? And that's a challenge for me. You know,
I love that.
As a driver, I look at it and like, I don't want to just come here and drive around in circles. Well, I do, but you know, like, where's the end game? And that end game is, and I think we broke the lap record. And then when we came back, I think afterwards, we then went even quicker, but then we were playing a yo-yo with another Lambo.
Yeah, we were.
And, yeah, I mean, that was great fun. Like,
it was wonderful for me in the commentary box. It was such a great subplot.
Yeah, I mean, that, for me, it's great fun as well. Like, everyone says, oh, are you upset it's gone? I was like, no, because it gives me a challenge. You know, it gives us something to aim at this year.
Well, I mean, this was the beauty of it. So, and just to be clear, of course, I should have said that this lap record is the GT lap record. Hence, it was British GT back in the day. I know the outright's a Formula 3 car, Stefano Lini, that has that. But a GT car, and it was a 1 minute 4 seconds, 0.101, which is an average speed of 103.89 mile an hour. It's just ridiculous. That includes 2 chicanes, for crying out loud. But we then get to October, and we then had Sasha Kakad here as well. Now, he was in a Huracan Evo GT3, so that's a more modern spec car, wasn't it?
That's a current modern GT3 car,
But he, now, of course, the records show, he took it down to a 62.9.
Yep.
And of course you go, isn't that, you know, wait all day for one bus and 2 come along at once.
Yep.
But you were there with him, duking it out back and forth.
I think we got a 62.9 as well.
Right.
But just not quite in the right 100.
Not a 0.956,
No, and I think that's the fun of it, because not only they see me pushing, and then they push, but then it also helps me. So that snowballs. And you can see, like, in the last year, we had 2 in one go, you know, and well, 3 technically, because I think I broke it. Then last lap, I think he said he did it, was he went and broke it again. So, you know, that's the fun. And that it also has the drivers want to come for a challenge and come and try and beat it. I'm open for that. You know, anyone watching this that wants to come to Combe with their GT3 car, bring it on.
Oh, massively. I mean, we have so much fun on those days. But here's a question for you then. Can 62 seconds be beat?
Yes.
Wow.
100%. Like, that day wasn't perfect. So it was raining in the morning. I never thought it was going to be a day where, if you look at when I first arrived here, driving all the way from Nottingham, I was like, it's going to be an interesting day. Never did I think by the end of it would be doing those lap times. So I think on a really good day, yes, it can go quicker as well. And there might be a different machine coming out to play this year. And if that happens, then yeah, definitely. I drove it last week. It is a very quick weapon.
Absolutely. That has even given Nigel his fire back by the sounds of what you were telling me.
Yeah, and Nigel always has that fire in his belly. Like, he talks about this place, and when he's raced around here with no chicanes, you know, so he has that love for this place, and probably the same, like, he's probably rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got a few nice cars now that hopefully everyone will get to see. One being the BMW M4 GT3 Evo.
I saw the photo. It looks mean.
It is mean. It is mean. And I was lucky enough to drive it the other day, and it is a very nice car, very well dialed in. So I think already, after just doing a few laps in it round here, will be quicker than the Gallardo.
Yeah,
so
wow.
that will be fun, because if I can beat it straight away, then what can we tune it in to do?
Exactly, go more and more. And I hasten to add, and I know many of you watching will already know this, but of course a lap record only counts in the race.
Yes.
So then you've got back markers, you've potentially got someone fighting with you or whatever else.
Because that's the other thing, like, what you do is when, you know, you've got to do it really quite early on in a race, where
Oh, really?
I feel like I have to, because...
Is that not too much fuel in the car at that point?
But then you've got the fresher tyres. So you've got the fine balance of the tyre going off but a lighter car, or you've got the good tyre. But again, it depends on what day, because if you've got a hot day and you can get that tyre to work in the first couple of laps, maybe it's we can go sub 1 minute.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm not gonna put myself under too much pressure, but that's definitely, ever, like you said with the Volvo, I've always said I believe I can drive something with a roof over my head under a minute round here, and I'll keep trying.
Wow. And that's wicked. That's what we enjoy. And I mean, you were making the comment that when you are doing that and you're pushing it, one of the reasons you love it here is you can sense the crowd getting excited.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, bank holiday weekend, you can't see like past the crowd. No. So you go off the start line and everyone's there. And the moment I start ramping it up, you can see the crowd getting excited. And as I push, they're like, you can see them egging it on. And even when you finish, like that in-lap, when you're waving to everyone, everyone's on their feet, and that as a driver, I mean, even now I've just got goosebumps, like just thinking about it. And it's nice. That's what we dreamers, like when I was a kid growing up, that's what motorsport was about. It was about, I can remember in 93, I went to Donington to watch a test day of F1, and I went to the toilet and I looked to my right and there's Senna. And I was having a wee next to Ayrton. He was God in my eyes at that time. He is my hero. And that feel of here is very, okay, it's not Formula One, but the fans are close to the action. We're close to the fans. We can put on a show. We can enjoy it. And that brings back memories for me. And that's what makes this place really special for me. And that every year, even if I am busy with work, I always try and make sure I come back and do a couple of races here if I can.
And we love it and appreciate it, definitely, without question. Just to also add that the unofficial lap record around here is by that crazy McMurtry Spearling prototype, the electric car, good old Max Chilton.
Yep.
54.559.
That's quick. That's quick for a car.
Isn't it mad?
Yeah, and Max, obviously, Max is a driver in himself. I've known Tom and Max way back to karting days, and to hear that name makes you smile. It is a name in the past, but then see him, he'll know what it feels like to go fast around this place, and he'll say the same as me. It definitely gives you that excitement in a car.
Yeah.
And that thing sticks to the ground like glue.
It does, and I mean, hopefully, that's why we can go, look, there is something that is going well and truly under the 60, so yes, we can have it in something like this. The outright lap record is 58.596, but that was a single-seater F3 car, and that's a different gravy altogether, isn't it? Light.
Yeah, maybe I should bring the work car here, bring one of the F1 film movie. Cars and have a go.
We would love that.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
That'd be cool. No, an F3 car around here, a single seat around here with the bumps and the high speed.
We call them undulations, by the way.
I like. Okay. We have a bit of both here, but I like the bumps. They make it exciting.
They do.
They make it a challenge. If you put it absolutely smooth, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
You give us some bumps, and then the brave has to brake after the bumps. So, especially into quarry.
I was about to say, I mean, that's not even we've got a big bump, I believe, at camp here.
Yeah.
There's like a seam that you can hit, but up Avon Rise is not just a bump, that is a natural crest and then going into quarry. That presents a unique challenge that going at the speed you're going in these GT cars must be colossal.
Yes, it does. And knowing what we've got coming with a modern GT3 car, how late you can brake again, it's going to be somewhere on that rise. But then as you go up and over, obviously the weight changes in the car. You're also trying to turn left before you turn right. So the weight's going all to the right-hand side to then shift all that weight to the left. It's going to be interesting. And I think that's a challenge of this place. It's like you look on a piece of paper and you look at the track map and people might go, oh yeah, it looks fairly easy. This place isn't easy. This place is a challenge and a half.
I always say there's a reason that spectator bank at Quarry Corner is packed.
I know it because I've gone up there out of shape in that Volvo thinking, okay, they're going to get their money's worth now. And I was like, oh no, just keep calm, Craig. And you can overdrive here. You can push too hard and then the lap time disappears. It is really tricky to get in that time of that window where the lap time just keeps coming to you.
Yeah.
So it's just being that right frame of mind, right people around you, right car, and it's going to be a fun one, I think, this year.
On another level, because I know we're all really appreciative of the circuits investing in the Rector-Cell barriers, the Rector-Cell cushions. Yeah. That's been a godsend, though, hasn't it? If you do happen to lose it, it's a bit more forgiving than it was.
Political answer, I'll say yes. as a driver, I never look at a barrier and go, that's
okay.
Hurt. You know, yes, the hands device has saved me several times in crashes, film career and racing career, you know, and so I'm grateful for all the safety. But then as a true racer, I've driven some great historic cars where it is so cool to push those things hard, because you're like, if I hit anything in this, I'm going to be bent in it. Like, I'm like, and that is, as a driver, I believe that's the true feeling, is like, you've got a H pattern box. If you miss a gear, you lose a second and a half. Now with a paddle shift, everything becomes so simple. Yes, we're going a lot quicker, but back then you have to respect a wall is a wall and it hurts, you know, and so people might lift but then the top boys might go full throttle through there that don't look at that wall and don't think it's a wall. So yes, safety wise has to improve, and it always has, and it's amazing when you see some of the accidents and people walk away from them nowadays. But then also I think part of me being a true racer, I'm like, it's like Spa, poo on a double left. When I used to do F3 testing there every Thursday, and the start of the year, there was a gravel trap there, and I could still do it flat in sixth, and my teammate was lifting. By the end of that year, that's when they extended all that tarmac runoff. So he could go through there and try and didn't end up in the gravel. And then by the end of that day, he would get it full throttle. Whereas before that, when there was gravel, he couldn't do it, because if he went in the gravel, he'd probably hit the barrier, take a corner, that was his day done. And that's where I always find, as a true driver growing up, like that's where I made a difference, was a high-speed corner, I'd look at it and go, yeah, I'd still do this full throttle. And then it's worked the same when I went to Superleague. Like my engineers were in China once. We were on a street circuit, and there's this long motorway straight, and they put 2 concrete barriers, and that was our chicane.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked at it, and my engineer went, oh yeah, we're going to be braking here. I was like, it's flat. I was like, if you come here, look at that, that's flat. And he looked at me and he was like, okay. And we went out in practice 1. I was 24 kilometers an hour quicker over the start finish line speed trap than anybody else. It's more so that I noticed that the team bosses from the other teams were walking up to the chicane to watch. So then after that, I started braking and downshifting so that I went to the same as what everyone else was doing. And I didn't pull it out of the bag again until qualifying, because I knew I could do it. But you could see, like, I was like watching these team bosses coming up, and I was like, I know what they're doing. So that's like, right, brake, downshift, go around the chicane. But if you lined it up, and that for me was a challenge back then. That was like, but it was 2 concrete walls, and my teammate Andy Suchek, he clipped one of those walls and had an absolutely massive accident. And it just showed how precise you had to be. But he could see my data, so he knew that I was doing it flat. And I think that's like here, like I said, no tarmac runoff area. But with those barriers, it definitely does. That investment is a must.
Yeah,
you know,
it is across the board.
Bigger picture of motorsport, it is a must.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. I was chatting with a racing driver of yesteryear. I can't remember who it was now. It might have been Mike Wilds, but I got a feeling it was Mike Wilds. And he, not that long ago, not only a few years ago, he went out in a Porsche, I think it was a Carrera Cup car, at Brands Hatch on the full GP circuit, and down to Hawthorns. Pretty quick right-hander, about after a very quick straight. And he was like well off the pace, and he was like, I don't understand. And he was speaking, he says, yeah, but look, I know how good these brakes are, so I'm braking later, I'm at the 10 metre board or whatever the heck it was. And the engineer went, yeah, that's where you brake if it's wet. And he went, I'm done. That was when he knew, I'm out, I'm done here, because to disengage the brain that much, because it's not about it becoming easier, it's become different. So suddenly your boundaries have extended.
And I think that's right. I think obviously now you look at a racetrack, and if it has got runoff area and it's safe, where's your boundary? Well, your boundary's further along. You can try different things, you can try new things.
And there's no real runoff at Hawthorns, is there?
No, exactly. Like Brands is a bit like here. Like, you know, especially onto the old Grand Prix circuit, it's, you know, it's fun. Like, and that's...
Because you've got to be scared.
I think you'd be lying if you weren't scared going at those speeds around those tracks.
It's that adrenaline though, isn't it?
It's the adrenaline, and that scared is my buzz.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I enjoy. It's not that I'm scared of, like, and it's a negative. That's actually that's what I get my buzz from.
Yeah.
Scaring myself actually makes me feel alive. And and I know it sounds silly, but that's what racing drivers and bike riders and that adrenaline rush is something special.
But to show where it's all relative is that you and Max were talking earlier, you couldn't go and do what the TT riders go and do, for example.
100% not, no.
So, and yet they go and do it and they thrive for it every single year. So it's everybody's different what their boundaries are.
Yeah, I mean, I watch the TT and I'm in awe. Like, like you look at that, but then if you put them, say, in a car with high downforce and said to them, right, Silverstone turn 1, or Cops. So Cops is flat.
They go, not in your life.
They'll be like, no chance. But it is,
Well, Rossi took a while, didn't he? Because I should be commentating on him again this year at GT World Challenge at Brands Hatch because he's back out in it. But I remember the first year he was there, and of course it was mayhem with all the two-wheel fans in watching this as well. What was he in? The Audi R8, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he wasn't great. He wasn't bad. I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? He was better than most, but he was not suddenly. Whereas actually, he's now got used to it, and I think he's won. He's won a race as well.
He's very good in a GT car now. He's brought the consistency.
He had to swallow his pride, though, didn't he, for a while?
I think people forget how good GT drivers actually are.
Yes.
And I think everyone looks at Formula One being the pinnacle. People forget a lot of the people, like in my era, when you had Jenson Button, Barrichello, Massa, all taking up Formula One for 17 years, all of that talent coming through had to filter somewhere. A lot of them now are all in GTs or sports cars and hypercar. You look at the hypercar field's unbelievably strong. But GT drivers, you put a modern F1 driver like Max, it'd be interesting to see what he does at Nürburgring 24.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be up there because he's unbelievable. I think he's the best driver in the world. But I think it will show how good the talent around the GT fields actually are.
I agree. I think you're right. Just quickly on that, and we are going to go back in time over your race career before we move on to all the amazing stuff you've done in the film industry. But do you find, picking up on what you've said there about the F1, is that the targets changed a lot, and I can't say now because it's probably been like it for, I don't know, let's say 10 years or whatever. Used to be, I want to be an F1 driver, whereas now the phrase is, I want to be a professional racing driver.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what that is, and it's all the other trappings that go with it, whether it's stunt driving, whether it's coaching. I
think from my side, I grew up being one of those that, like, Formula One was my goal.
Yeah.
And that it was Formula One or everything, and everyone around me was Formula One or everything. Yeah. The moment I couldn't get there, everyone disappeared, and I was like, I just want to drive.
Yeah.
And that was when the penny dropped for me, and I was like, right, now what do I do? And I think nowadays people see the media outlets are more focused on different categories, whereas back in the day, the first 14, 15 pages of Autosport was all F1.
Yeah, agreed.
It was everything was F1, F1, F1. And everyone, but now it's so expensive, and you look
at elitist,
from karting, like karting, my dad and myself used to go and have a kart on top of a Renault Espace and fight for a British championship that way. Nowadays, you go there, I went not long ago, and they're all Arctic trucks with like
F1
automatic doors, and it's unbelievable the money difference, and it's fantastic, but it means that
there's no dad, lad and van anymore.
Which is a shame, because that for me is where talent comes from.
Yeah.
Talent just doesn't come from how big someone's pocket is.
No, I agree.
It comes from someone that's got that desire, that hunger, that belief in themselves, and that's probably what we're lacking now, and that's why you see, the Hamiltons, the Alonsos, still being able to outshine quite a few of these other drivers because they would grow up with bundles of talent. And it's nice to see them still there. You still get some of the youngsters coming through, like when I was on the F1 film, like you'd watch the support races and you'd be like, oh, that kid's good. Oh, that kid's good.
Well, Arvin Blad that's now, stepping up, although he's support, isn't he? But, you can see these youngsters.
And it's a shame, there's not more of them, because I can remember when I raced Formula Renault, we were at Brands Hatch Indy, and the whole grid, there was more cars than there was places on the grid. So in qualifying, I think 8 people went home before they even got to the racing. And I think the whole grid was separated by 0.6 of a second. And you know, 8 people went home.
Yeah.
And that was like the talent, but it wasn't, yes, it was expensive, but it wasn't the budgets that are now, do you know? And I think that's when it really, and there was less categories. And I think now it's so widespread. Where is that talent? Whereas back then it was like, it's there, right? From there you go to F3, from there you go to GP2, from there it's Formula 1.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I think now there's so many different categories, but
which has a fun side to it, but it does mean that there's a lot of, I'm always passionate about the talent, especially British talent, because we're so patriotic, aren't we? And we, you know, remember Mansellmania and all of those, and obviously the euphoria over Lewis and everything else. We want more of that. And actually, we're still doing all right numbers-wise for British drivers, but there's a lot of talent that you kind of go, they're not going to make it for all the wrong reasons, which is such a shame.
And there is, I mean, like I said, when I was growing up, there was probably 10 of us that could have quite easily been Formula 1 drivers, and very, very good Formula 1 drivers at that, do you know, and none of us got there because there was no opening, do you know, because there was, like I said, Jensen, like Rubens, they were in Formula 1 for such a widespread, the talent just, the doors didn't open, and that's fine, because they were super talented drivers at the time. But, you know, now with testing being banned, you can't even go into like a testing role, and that's where we struggled, was the years we were trying to get there, they'd just banned testing. So you couldn't even go and prove yourself as a test driver. Whereas like a few years before that, I had a teammate, Antonio Pizzonia, and he was saying that he worked at Williams and Jaguar as test drivers, and they were doing 28,000 kilometres a year in a Formula 1 car. So when he got the chance to drive in a race, he knew what that car did. And that's what you haven't quite got now. And
they knew what he could do as well.
And they got paid good money to be a test driver, whereas now it's like, you know, you paid to be on the Formula 1 programme. Like whether you're ever going to get Formula 1 or not,
well, that's the next challenge. Or you last 2 minutes if it's on the Red Bull programme, and then you're thrown back out.
That's a tricky one.
We won't go there.
No, let's not go there.
Let's leave that be. I've even dropped my paper as I talk about it.
I felt my blood pressure rise.
Yeah, so did I, clearly. I mean, as you mentioned, single-seaters, you did a lot of Formula Renault racing, predominantly in Europe, I noticed. Why is that?
Budgets.
Really?
And age. Like I did what I did in go-karts, and I became like British Open champion. We fought for a lot. Then we looked at it, and actually, it was here, thinking about it, that I came for a T-car scholarship.
Yes, I remember that.
And I got my ARDS license, and my actual car racing license was all through here at that T-car scholarship. Didn't actually win the T-car scholarship, but that's definitely not mentioned that one.
Move on.
And at that point, we were like, where do we go? What do we do? Do we do a year in senior karting? But then it's like, well, what is it the right thing? And then one of our friends pointed us in a direction of Renault 1600 out in Belgium. We went over there, tested a car, enjoyed it. It was very good championship. And in the end, we ended up buying a car. You know, a sponsor of mine, one of my dad's very good friends, went, well, if that's serious, let's buy a car, get a British team to run you over there. And they went and ran me over there, and I could race that at 15. So I think on my first weekend, I turned 15 on the Friday. So,
We've led very different lives, mate.
So I turned 15 on the Friday, did the practice session, which was my first time as older, qualified, I think, P4, and I ended up winning that weekend. And I became, at the time, the youngest ever person to win a single-seater race. And that year, there was like Jerome D'Ambrosio, who's now at Ferrari as a team advisor for Fred. And, you know, he's been at Mercedes with Toto, raced in Formula 1. And, so it was a very good, a lot of talent. I was very raw because I didn't get any testing. Oh, right. So I rocked up at Zolder, won. Then I threw it off and had a bit of a, I think we came 4th that year. And then I came back to the UK when I was old enough, which I probably had a mistake of coming back to the UK.
Oh, really? And yet that's where most of the foreign drivers come here, don't they?
I was very young. We didn't have the budgets. I was in a single car team. Do you know, when you look at Fortec and Manor back then, they had 4-car teams. So I was in a single car team that didn't know the tracks. You're just asking for an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we were like Mike Conway. You know, Lewis had just finished the year before in Renault. So, you know, all of Lewis's data and machinery was around, and it was tough. If anything, it probably made me drive better. I think it took until the final round of the year to get a podium, and I did. But it just meant I didn't have a year where I was at the front all year, and then sponsors pulled out. 2005, I missed a whole year.
Oh yeah,
and,
just spotted that.
you know, at 17 years old, I thought my career was gone. You know, and then 2006, I went back to Belgium, met a team, Astromega, who ran Fernando Alonso in Formula 3000 back in the day. And Mickey Van Hall said to me, right, if you bring X amount of euros to the first race, let's see how we go. I was like, I haven't got X amount of euros. So I was working as a lifeguard back then and a builder.
Right.
So I was borrowing money off all my friends, like 20 quid here, 20 quid there. And I mean, we were talking low thousands I needed to find, not high thousands. So I literally borrowed money off everyone or anyone I could. I'd walk around town. I'd be like, right, can I have a 20 quid? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'll pay you it back. And anyway, we went to Zolder, and we ended up setting fastest lap. We didn't have a great weekend, but I hadn't been literally not tested, not driven a car for over a year, and just plonked myself back in, gave them money, a bit naive, going, oh, we'll win this. And I think we came out like third in the championship, but I set fastest lap by the end of the weekend. Mickey Van Hall said, right, I need the same amount for the next race. I was like, oh, come on, Mickey, like, you know, and Mickey was amazing for me. And anyway, I found it. And we went back to the next round at Zolder, which was the Renault World Series weekend.
Right, yeah.
So you had 100,000 spectators there, big old weekend. And Mickey had done a lot of work with the car. I'd done a lot of work on myself, like lost a lot of weight, like got myself back into racing fitness. And we went there, we set fastest lap, we were on pole, won both races. And after that, Mickey gave me a drive for the rest of the year, free of charge.
Wow.
And that's where my career really kind of then took off, because he then helped me go into Formula Renault in France the year after. We won a championship back then in 2006, and they went from a 1-car team to a 3-car team. You know, it all
So it helped him as well.
It helped everyone.
Yeah.
You know, and then.
Well, yeah, because I got the stats here: 12 races, 7 wins,
Yeah.
4 pole positions, a whopping 204 points, winning that championship.
Yeah. And that was the thing. And it was still against drivers like Maxime Martin, who's now factory Mercedes driver. He's been factory Aston Martin, BMW and DTM.
Yeah.
You know, and so the
Tough
talent,
life.
the talent was there. It was huge. And, you know, it wasn't a hard championship. It was a hard championship to win. But with the right ingredients, with Astromega, Mickey Van Hall, Jan, my engineer, and myself, we made it look a little bit easy, but it was because we all gelled, you know.
Yeah.
And then we went to France, raced in France for a year. That was a tough year again, but
Was that the 2-litre?
yeah, 2-litre Renault. And so then again, at the end of 2007, that would have been my career was over again, and I was thinking, oh, we're back to where I was. And then all of a sudden, this Superleague Formula came out, and it was again. I looked at it, and I knew Astromega were running it, but they were running Anderlecht, a Belgium team, which wanted a Belgium driver. Something happened at Donington, I don't know what, but the car caught fire. Driver got out, left the car on fire. Didn't quite work with the team. I all of a sudden get a phone call saying, you're in at Donington. And this was literally on like the Monday, and Donington was that weekend.
Nice.
And I thought my career was over. So like the whole winter, I was like,
Because these were more powerful cars than the Formula
these
Renault,
were a
weren't they?
4.2 litre V12 with 760
Single seater.
horsepower, single seater,
No weight.
no power steering, and then on boost they had 860 horsepower, so they were quicker than a GP2 car at some circuits. So I was like thinking my career's over. All of a sudden on the Monday they're like, Craig, you're driving. I'd never seen one. So anyway, I drove to Belgium with my dad, had a quick seat fitting, came back. Then on the Thursday, went to Donington for the driver's briefing. The championship organisers didn't know who I was. Like, they wanted the big names, you know, like the Antonio Pizzolias and all these big, because it was a big championship with some big football clubs involved.
Yeah.
And I was nobody. Like, I'd come from Formula Renault. And they were like, oh, okay, we don't really want this guy in here because he's not a big name. So Donington was a bit new for everybody. And I'm not going to lie, I'm glad I retired in both races with mechanical issues because I was hanging on.
Oh, really?
Like, I was so unfit. And like my neck, like the G-force at the bottom going through the old head, I was like looking at the sky, my head was falling off. And anyway, we were like P5, so I knew I was fast, but I was so like I wasn't ready. And then we had like 3 weeks until Nürburgring. I had never trained so hard in my life to go to Nürburgring. And also the championship organisers had said no one could get a double podium because where you finished in race 1 was a complete reverse grid, not just the top 10, a complete reverse grid for race 2. And I was like, well, they don't like me because I'm not a big name. What's the biggest way I can make them like me is get a double podium. So at Nürburgring, I can remember I was still very green and I followed Antonio Pizzoni around who had come from Formula 1. I was like, he's good on the brakes. Like, it's carbon brakes. I'd never driven with carbon brakes before. And I was like, blooming heck, he's braking like 10 meters later. I followed him round and that was the best 5 laps I could do. And I'm like, I'm catching him now. I'm like, oh, I'm catching him. Anyway, in that race, I did my first ever pit stop, which scared the living daylights out of me. Coming into the pits with people, I was like, how many am I going to mow down? And, you know, like, everything was new. Everything.
It scared them as well then.
I'm not surprised having me coming at them. And so I did my first pit stop, came out and the engineer's like, yeah, you're P2. I'm like, okay, this is cool. So came P2 on the podium, shake hands with the CEO of the championship. He's a bit like, and I was like, I'll see you later on as well. And he kind of laughed. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I've got to start 17th now. And I've said, I'll see him later on. I was like, oh. So anyway, second race, everything worked out fairly well. My engineer was unbelievable and did a great strategy. We jumped a load of cars in the pit lane. And then anyway, like 4 laps to go, I'm like P3. I'm like, okay, I'm on the podium. Next thing I've overtook into P2, got P2 again and stood on the podium. The guy's like, yeah. And he was like, you're entertaining, you are. And I'm like, oh, well. And then after that, Superleague then the following year actually paid my budget to drive.
Oh, really?
And
that's an amazing turnaround.
You know, it was just by doing a few things slightly different, having a lot of knockdowns, but we just kept getting back up. And
that could have gone the other way. They could have begrudged you because you did what they told you couldn't be done.
Yeah. It could have
been. They could have gone,
but for their championship, I mean, it was great because everyone was saying it couldn't be done. I was there like, it can be done. Like, you know, if you could, as a racer, everyone, this is why I don't like people saying, oh, reverse grids are rubbish. As a true racer, they're amazing.
Yeah, I bet.
Because you have that opportunity to really push your expertise in this industry to the absolute max. Are you quick over a lap? Yes. Can you race? Yes. Can you overtake? Yes. What more boxes do you want to tick? Do you know? And I think that was amazing then. And I became probably a bit of a face for Superleague then over the next few years. You know, the following year we signed with Tottenham. Superleague kind of put me in with Tottenham Hotspur, British club. It all kind of gelled, came second in that year. Following year was big prize money on the card. So all of a sudden there was more drivers.
Funny that.
It was 100,000 euros per weekend. And you'd go so the top 6 finishers from those points finishers from the 2 races, including the reverse grid, would go into a 6-lap dash for cash. So then that slate was wiped clean and those 6 drivers just went for 100,000 euros. Good. And the entertainment, like turn 1 was lethal. Yeah. Because, you know, it's like, and that year, I think in total, I think we won 980,000 euros in prize money. And that was the thing, like then that paid for racing, you know, and you don't see that very often anymore. Prize money isn't a massive thing in motorsport, which is a shame, but that I kind of managed to help my own career. You know, it was in my hands. Yeah. You know, and but then it all came crashing down when that championship
And it
ended.
did. And just before we move on from Super League, absolutely devastating. It doesn't run anymore. You and I were chatting beforehand, and you said with social media and all the media outlets now, it would be even bigger now than it was then. It was these big, powerful single-seaters that were liveried up for different clubs. So you got this added level of cheering and support over just being a driver. You might be uninterested in the driver, but it was all about the team and big crowds at the things, an amazing thing. But that stopped, and presumably that was why that then created a new stall to your career. Yeah,
I think Super League, when that stopped, and I mean, it was such a shame it stopped because I would have stayed there a long time. I loved it. It was, I found my home. I tried to carry on racing. You know, like you
did some wet.
I did some wet, a couple of rounds of wet. Again, a driver had crashed a car a few times and the team were getting rid of him. They said, Craig, can you jump in? So I did China and Bahrain, did a good job. But then the following year, it was like, can you bring X amount of money?
Right.
I'm like, I need to earn money somewhere. At some point in your career, you need to actually put money in your pocket, not leave your pocket, you know, and that was difficult then. And then I met Nigel, and Nigel started putting me in his cars, you know, so that was all the way back then. And, you know, but that became a friendship. You know, I never wanted to put much on, you know, Nigel's always looked after me, but I've never, like, that is, you know, we go racing to have fun.
Yes.
And it's evolved to now, this is my absolute fun time is coming here, like we said earlier. And, you know, we pushed. We did a GP2 test. I was in the top 5, you know, but then they wanted over £1 million, you know, and it's like, where do you find £1 million from? You know, you talk to F1 teams, it's a lot more than that. You know, back end Formula 1 teams where I knew I could, you know, could you get an opportunity? Could you go to Monaco and pull something special out the bag? Or, you know, like those kind of things. Money was just horrendous. But
never tempted with IndyCar?
I would have been. I really would have been, but I couldn't find the right people just to get my foot in the door.
Oh, really?
You know, I really wanted to, because Super League was the old champ cars. So they were, they were kind of very much American based things. So, and we had Sebastian Bourdais in Super League, who was 5 times champ car champion.
Yeah.
So that was my benchmark. Like, if I can beat him, I can go to America and make this work. But back then, again, probably social media, F1 didn't really want to know IndyCar. Now you can watch it on Sky Sports F1. You know, I watch all the IndyCar races. Back then, it wasn't really a thing. So again, my people helping me here didn't really know what IndyCar was, you know, because they weren't racing people. And I was begging them to send me to go and do a NASCAR test or do an IndyCar test just to try and go over there and prove what I can do. And we just couldn't open that door, unfortunately.
But didn't I hear that it was still when you were in Super League that there was a contact that you made during those years that opened the door to what did become your big next thing, and that was starting to get involved in driving work in films?
Yes. So what happened was, from driving in Super League, I got a lot of people wanting me to coach for teams because of what I was doing then. And I got a call to go to Silverstone to coach. And I went there, and the guy turned up, wasn't your kind of 15-year-old guy in Formula Renault. He was a bit older, and I was like, okay. Coached him. He was unbelievable. And I didn't really know, I didn't know Wade's background at the time. But we got on really, really well. And what a driver he was. Like, you tell him to do something, you tell him to do cops flat, he'll do cops flat. I'm like, whoa, like this. I had to be careful as a coach, because you could tell a 15-year-old to do cops flat, it would take them all day. Yeah. Wade would warm the tyres up, and he believed you. And that shows, we'll probably get into that kind of world in a minute with the film world, but he literally, the trust in me telling him to do something, he did it straight away. We had a really fun day. He was unbelievably quick, you know, and he blew me away.
But I've heard that that's where it is that it needs to be a lot of trust between driver and the coach.
Yes.
I mean, I was speaking to David Brabham, who's done an amazing job in coaching Paul Bailey, who you know, owns these amazing cars. And one of the, even Paul was telling me, is that the best coaches don't suddenly throw everything at you. No. It's like a bit at a time.
Yeah.
And of course, what you can make up is quite significant. Yeah. and the buzz they get, because we go into self-preservation, don't we, as human beings?
Yeah.
You make us realise that you're actually being more safe than you need to be.
100%. And that's the thing, like, you can't expect someone that has a 9-to-5 job in the week to jump in a racing car and do something that we've grown up since 3 years old doing. You can't expect anyone to do that. So you have to learn their best points, their weakest points, and go, right, well, hang on, let's just get this bit right. Let's get this bit right. Even if it's not the fastest, but they're having fun, then they'll go quicker because they're having fun. And it's just getting to know somebody. So I got to know Wade really well. And then, you know, we went go-karting together for a bit of fun afterwards. We met up a few times. He came to my birthday meal and we really gelled. And, you know, obviously at that point I knew what he did, but I never really looked and thought, would Wade offer me a job? And then all of a sudden I got a phone call saying, do you fancy coming to Morocco? And I was like, well, yeah, well, I'll go. And so anyway, I went off to Morocco. We were filming Mission Impossible 5. And back then it was like, I wasn't a hero driver. Like, I turned up and I got to learn how the film industry worked, because like, you can't expect to walk into that world where there is unbelievable talent and then go, right, you're going to be driving the top cars. But you then have to learn how camera works, how they want things filming, and Wade really taught me every last detail of that.
So he did that work himself?
Yeah, he was a second unit director.
Oh, right, okay. So he wasn't in the car?
But Wade has been a very good stuntman.
Oh, okay.
From word go, and built his career up parallel to, say, my racing career.
Yeah.
And then we've met at the pyramid. Wow. And I always say it's a pyramid because I love the film world. And, you know, I can't imagine doing much else, you know, and like Wade is unbelievable at what he does. And when I sat in the passenger seat through the streets of Marrakesh and I was blown away, like how he made it look lively for camera. Like we were going through baskets, we were sliding towards what I was like, I want to do this. And it was a massive like eye opener for me to be like, wow, this is an industry that if I really work hard at, money can't buy a place where I am right now. I'm getting paid to be here. Like if I work hard, I can be here. And that's where it all started. You know, Wade Eastwood got me into this world, and start of this year, we were both up for an award. I flew out to LA for the Critics' Choice Awards. He was doing Mission Impossible. I was doing F1, and like he beat us, but I'm quite happy him beating us.
I think he deserves it.
He got me into the industry, and I owe him a lot. But you know, and then after that, you start working with directors and stunt coordinators from Bond, from all these great films, and I'm just in awe of them. Like they've taught me so much over the years, and it's an industry where I never ever thought I'd be in. But now I'm there, it's absolutely mind-blowing and something special. Because
it's not just, okay, we've got this scene where you need to go through the streets of Marrakesh and do this, this and this. From what we were talking about earlier, and we'll come on to what I class as the big one, because everybody will know it right now, the F1 movie, but way before that, is that you were having to put a lot of hours in the cars, the scene choreography, is that all?
Yeah, so like on F1, but again, from when I first went there with Mission, it was just like, right, you just drive down here at 30 miles an hour. I got told what to do. I did it. You know, you learn what the best guys are doing. Yeah. So then you kind of build yourself up. As years have gone on, you add your input. Oh, like when we race, the car does this, or, you know, so you bring a lot of things I've learned from racing and go, right, well, actually, if you're doing that speed, the car will react different. So it will look slightly different. And then people started listening, you know, and the snowball kind of started getting bigger. I did some pretty cool driving stuff on a few of the films. And then Gran Turismo being one of them was really fun. Were you? Driving the P2 cars on Gran Turismo. And then obviously going into F1, it was like, right, here's a script. Like, how do you make what they want on the script to look like racing in real life, like, but with movie cameras around? And I was lucky because like I worked very closely with Luciano Buscetta, who's like one of my best friends, and we've grown up in motorsport together. We also, Wade got Luch on his first job in Mission 5. So we started in the film industry together, and Luch was sequence coordinator, and I kind of helped him with that as additional sequence coordinator. We'd have a script, and he'll be sat in London on a simulator, I'll be sat in Nottingham on the simulator, and we were coming up with things and like trying them on the simulators, even down to putting cameras where they wanted cameras to see certain bits on the simulator of a car flashing by or two cars coming by, and then seeing how easy it would be to film it, and then we'd give the reports back. And, the two of us have just then evolved. Like when you look at back in 2014 to now, it's like, it's an unbelievable career, but then also something, I get to travel with one of my best mates all around the world doing some cool stuff. So,
and you were saying that I think it is easy to focus on F1 now because it's the here and now. But I mean, how long? So we got to see that. When did it come out? It's not long ago.
Came out mid last year.
Middle of last year. Yeah. But the work started I think wasn't it interrupted with the pandemic as well? Was that one?
I got the phone call in 2020, probably mid 22. It came around saying, how many drivers, we need a pool of drivers.
Okay.
But then after that phone call, it changed, like second unit direct, everything changed. So it was like, but my name was still there.
Yeah.
So it was very nerve-wracking times, because if someone comes along to you and says, we're going to film F1, that is like my
of course it is.
Dream, like that. It's the two blends.
Bearing in mind, we've already had the conversation of you weeing next to Ayrton Senna and he was your god. Now you're about to do an F1 movie.
It was my dream. So I didn't want to lose that. But then it changed hands a few times. Always I made sure that my name was there. Then the person that actually got it knew Luch very well. And Luch then, Luch was always going to be my first driver I would take and then Luch vouched for me. So we vouched for each other. And so we still got on it. And so we started actually filming, would have been 2024. So, coaching the drivers. No, 23, sorry, it would have been.
Yeah, because that felt too short.
Yes, 23, yes. So 23, we started with them in F3 cars at Rockingham, building them up.
That was closed?
That was closed. That was weird.
Wow.
It was like a ghost town.
Yeah.
You'd drive into Rockingham and there'd be just no one there, and we're just pounding around.
Was it still usable then?
Yeah, very slippery for the first few days.
Because that was used for a long time when it closed as ex-fleet car storage place.
And you could tell, there was where all the cars had been parked, all the tarmac was different colours, and so it took a lot.
Such a travesty, that place.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool driving around there, but it opened my eyes, because I was like, after about 5 laps, I'm like, my head's neck's hanging off. I'm like, wow, because obviously on a film, normally you get a scene and it's drive down a road, go round a few streets, This was do lap after lap after lap. And I'm like, wow, this is fitness-wise, it's pretty intense.
So what were you doing when this was happening? Were you establishing scenes, or were you coaching the likes of Brad Pitt?
Both. We knew by the time we got the actors there, so Brad and Damson there, we really roughly knew what we were going to be doing film-wise.
Okay.
So then even at Rockingham, we were like, right, let's get close. Let's get them used to being around each other,
So this wasn't filming yet?
No, this wasn't filming. This was a lot of weeks of just trying to teach them how to drive. Brad's a very good, accomplished driver. Damson has driven a road car. So again, going back to coaching, you've got two very different drivers that you need to get to one end goal.
Yeah.
And between Luch, myself, Duncan Tappy, Jonathan Kennard, Jordan Albert, we had a very good group of drivers that we put together that really made that film work. But it was hard, knowing that you've not only got to make them drive around a track at speed, but then they've got to do all their lines, and we had to know that as well, because, if they had to look in a certain mirror, we would be behind them and make them move a car so that they saw us in the mirror, so their head would look, and you knew, if they didn't do it, you'd be like, right, remember mirror over the radio. And, you'd be telling them, right, third gear here, brake here, you've got to defend here. And they would know where they needed to be, and you'd get close to them and they'd have a lockup and you'd be like, oh, this is, and all of that with 6 cameras on the cars, all rotating at different points to get different scenes.
Yeah.
And then one corner you'd be an Alpine, one corner would be the Apex car, you know, another corner would be a Ferrari. And like the way that like Luch and myself had done it was that, you know, like because like the Grand Prix, for instance, when we filmed at the Grand Prix, like we needed a crowd. So, but F1 would give us 5 minutes. So technically we had 3, maybe 4 laps if we could push it to get a whole sequence in. So like we were doing corner by corner. So from the script, it was like, right, well, this corner were an Apex car. Then the next lap, or next corner, sorry, he would like, Luch would be an Alpine and I would be a Ferrari and would do a move. And then Duncan would come through with a camera pretending to be an Apex car. And it was like, but we had so many different like little bits into the details to make it that so dynamic that I think a lot of people didn't quite, you know, behind the scenes was interesting to get it all filmed.
The big thing that jumps out at me there is that there's this understandable, I'm going to say cynicism. I don't know whether it needs to be a derogatory feeling, but that the assumption will be that it's CGI.
Yeah.
But you guys really focus on authenticity here.
Yes. So the main bit that actually got changed was they skinned the cars. So it wasn't as such as so like say for turn 1 at Silverstone on the grid, we only had 3 or 4 cars at one time. So I would watch a sequence from a Formula 1 race that we were going to use, and we knew where our car had to be. So when we were filming it, I would leave a car width going into the corner so they could put our real car into F1 footage.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of that. There was also a lot of playing different cars. So where people thought, oh, it's just been CG'd in, we actually played that role and they just changed the skin of our cars.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, it was so, you know, and it'd be like the Red Arrow. I explained it to people like it was the Red Arrows. Like there'd be the 4 of us on track. And when it was just the stunt boys, you know, we'd be like, right, dive here. And like, we knew who was diving and there'd be like, you'd know it was on. And do you know how the Red Arrows have their certain noises? We would have our certain kind of terminology just to make a move happen on camera. And, you know, you'd see a camera start to move, and then like, you'd be like, oh, I've got to be there. And it'd be like, you'd send it there. And it was just one of those moments, one of those films that just was really special with Joe, the director, worked closely. He was unbelievable, so open and told us what he wanted to get. We had Gary Powell, who was worked on Bond for many, many a year. One of the best stunt coordinator, second unit director in the industry. He was working with us closely on watching the monitors, making sure we were in shot all the time. You know, and we just had a great group of people that created something that was quite unique. And not only that, I got to go to Daytona as well. And
did you?
We went to Vegas. We drove down the strip flat out on a rev limiter at 200 miles an hour, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning through like it just some of the experiences that film gave us. And I probably did more miles on that film than I did in my racing career.
Yeah, you told me that, and that is a staggering stat.
And they had so many hours of footage, but I think I did something like 8,000 kilometers. And it's incredible, the film work, you know, and plus all the testing before that, all the development work. And, you know, they just did an amazing job. They really pushed for it to be authentic. And then, you know, having Luch and myself there at the start really helped that, you know, hit the ground running. But then, you know, Lewis was there, you know, Lewis would come in the garage and watch. A lot of the drivers would come and watch, and was saying to Max earlier, like, at Abu Dhabi, it ended up that F1 got that involved that Charles and George actually did a start for us, with us, so for the camera. So we didn't put 2 extra of our cars in. We actually had George and Charles on the grid with us. We were like, just look after us because our cars aren't quite as quick as the F1 cars. Yeah. And, you know, and they were great. They like went down into turn 1. Charles was fully locked up and we had it, you know, they played a great job in it as well. And
I think because by that point, was there a period of time when you had to get the real F1 world to take you seriously?
I think at the start. Because
you see all these things come about, we're going to do this, but they took a while to see that, this is the real deal. Yeah.
I mean, you probably know as much as I do, like trying to put a small film crew, even in a racing paddock, is really difficult. Trying to add probably 400 people of costume, of like camera of all these different departments
on a race weekend.
So in total, probably, I think Silverstone, there was over 1,000 to start with. And then, but as we travelled, there was probably a good 400 people every weekend we went away.
Yeah.
And of all the different departments, trying to get them to work in an F1 paddock seamlessly without causing any chaos.
I can't even get my head around Silverstone, how that would even work.
It was
Where
tricky.
were you all based then?
Hiding.
Yeah.
So we were based just as you go into Stowe.
Yeah.
We're in a marquee there. That was where costume and everything was.
On the infield or outfield?
On the infield.
Infield, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we had a garage in the F1 pit lane.
Oh, did you?
So where our cars were.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 garages where our race cars were that we were filming from in the old pit lane next to the the F2 Sport paddock.
Right.
So we were spread out a little bit. So we were getting out, going in the shuttle to monitors, which were in the new pit lane, watching monitors, going back, having a bite to eat, going back to our cars, getting ready for our next run when in between an F2 and an F3 race.
Yeah, yeah.
And going out and having that.
And of course, the big one at that British Grand Prix is that you were at the back of the field for the real start.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight. And I don't think in the film industry, they're like, oh yeah, you just got to pull away on the grid. The pressure of pulling away on a Formula One grid. I was sat on
a few people watching.
Just a few people watching, including my mum and dad. So they're in the BRDC grandstand. And I was like, because obviously it's not only my dream since I was a kid, my dad has also supported me, my parents, my sisters, since I was 3 years old. And so my mum and dad were sat there in the grandstand and, I think it was a proud moment for them, but I was like, if I stall here, I've delayed Formula One, I'm live on telly, I've ruined our shot, which was the main important thing to get. Because you have to pinch yourself that I've got a head camera on, so I'm sat in a car with a camera, I can see just under the visor here, with the camera on, and I've got to remember, I've got to look down at the steering wheel, do certain actions on the steering wheel, which were in the film. Yeah. While I'm on the grid of Formula One, trying to take that in as well, thinking, oh my goodness, this is where I've always dreamed to be. All the mechanics pulled off and I'm like sat there going, I was like, oh. Yeah. And I was like, right, I've got to do this dial at this point. And then and then F1 were like, do not mess it up. Go with everyone else. Well, the storyline in the film, Brad waits. Yes. So, Sonny waits in the grid. So I'm like, F1 were like, do not wait. I'm like, Joe's like, Craig, wait. And I'm like, oh, who do I upset? Do I upset my boss or Formula One? And, I was like, if I don't mess this up, I can wait. So I was like, the pressure was huge. Yeah. And we got it right and we did it all good. And I think just slowly building up with those, we always had 2 advisors from F1 with us. And as long as you explained what you wanted to achieve, they really worked hard for us to achieve it. And it's F1's name as well as our name on the line, F1 had put their name to it.
Yeah, because it's the full one, isn't it? The full symbol as it is copyrighted.
And I think you look at it, when it first was going to come out, it was only going to come out to streaming. After Silverstone, all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, actually, this could be quite good. And we kind of went into the unknown with it because no one's actually done a racing movie at F1 events at those speeds. We were doing 200 miles an hour with cameras on the cars. It's insane. With the actors, and it was Top Gun on wheels. Yeah, yeah. And, that's how you explained it. Joe did an amazing job on Top Gun. He also did an amazing job on Formula One. So, yeah.
Well, Lewis was involved in this as well.
Yeah, Lewis was... Lewis was there. I think, he got involved a lot. Lewis.
Yeah, because weren't they trying to make out it was his first?
He's a producer. Yeah. And everyone went, oh, it's just for a name. He was good as well. Just on a little authentic bits. He would go because obviously we're in F2 engined cars, and he'd be like, oh, we're through here in this gear, or the sound. He just knew instantly those little details, and no stone was unturned. And so to have Lewis there to make sure that all of those details, Luch has obviously been Williams' F1 test driver. He's done what he's done in racing. I've done what I've done in racing. We wanted it to be as authentic as it could be, but having Lewis bum in seat, he'd race and then literally come and watch a monitor. Yeah. It was instant, it was
amazing.
It was amazing, really.
But at the end, so you've done that F1, that start off the grid with the full crowd there, the terror, and you pulled it off. The race hadn't even finished, and you were already up in the air.
Yeah, we were
off.
straight off to Hungary then for testing because we were shooting there in a few weeks. So they wanted to get testing in the F3 cars to learn the circuits. Because obviously you go into these circuits and Brad and Damson hadn't driven these circuits before. And then all of a sudden you don't want them to get there when there's 100,000 people there and not know the tracks. And also the more you could get them up to speed, when the cameras are on them, the more realistic it looks. So, they're pulling proper G, and the faster we could get them to drive, the better it was for the end product.
Because there's a key authenticity point I want to pick up on is that, yes, there are points where it was you as, say, Brad's stunt double, but there was a lot when he had been coached by you that he was genuinely doing that driving.
Yeah, definitely. And
it was getting that balance.
Yeah, there was no face replace on it. Like, we talked about it and, obviously you have to talk about these things when you're driving at those speeds. And in the end, they did such a great job that as long as, they would follow us around, we'd always be there. Like, one of Luch or myself, would always be there. So if Damson was on track, I'd be playing Brad. If Brad was on track, Luch would be playing Damson.
I see.
Just so that we could always be there. We can play in the moment. They were always had someone with them, but pushing them to get the end product to be a different level. And
what was their take on this? Especially, Brad, I can imagine that he was loving all of that.
Yeah.
But Damson is that opened up a whole new world of challenges for him. What was his final take on it? What was his take throughout and at the end of it?
I think to start with, I can remember we went go-karting with him, and I think it kind of, we all kind of, it opened there where I was like, wow, this is going to be a project that's really, to go from having someone that's never driven a race car properly to then be driving effectively on an F1 weekend in 3 months. How are you going to make that work? And Damson was unbelievable. Even to the point that when we were at Rockingham, he went and played football with all the mechanics, and, he embraced himself in there. And same with Brad. Brad embraced himself in it. He threw himself. He was out the car. They were looking at data. They turned into full racing drivers.
Really?
They went full racing driver mode, which we needed them to do, really, because, they had to learn. But they would get out. You wouldn't have to ask them to go and look at data. They would be at the data station, going through everything, learning. It was...
And I'm not surprised to hear that of Brad, because there's always that story, Fight Club, is that he went and lived with a gypsy fighter to learn the language properly, to learn the fighting, and got himself in shape. And he was phenomenal in Fight Club, absolutely incredible. So he immersed, he's like the ultimate, what they call him, character actor or whatever, gets in it hugely. But this is a young actor in Damson that went into acting, not racing.
Yeah, exactly. And also Brad has that love of bikes. He kind of has done a lot on bikes, and you could see he knew racing lines. He knew, but Damson, he had an opportunity, and a bit like Luch and myself in motor racing, the door opens, you grab an opportunity. Damson had an opportunity. He is one of the nicest people, and probably one of the greatest up and coming actors that will come around, because he's got that mentality right. That, he's approachable. He's lovely to be around. People want to work hard for him. If he asked us to stay and do extra bits and learn, we'd stay. There's no issue.
He earned that respect from you.
That respect was there, and you have to give them respect. To put someone in a racing car, strap them into a single seater where you're cocooned into a bathtub, basically.
You're not sat next to him at this point in there, are you? He's
you
on
have
his
to
own.
then send him out the pit lane on your own and follow them, and then hope that everything goes to plan and they listen and trust you.
Yeah.
That is a hats off moment to anybody that does 100%. It, let alone then to do all your lines, do all of everything else. So, both of them, you could not fault their commitment.
And on that front, because I know a lot of viewers will be wondering this, Brad Pitt is as nice as we think he is, isn't he?
He's lovely. Yeah. Absolutely. Both of them were amazing. Brad was lovely as well. Absolutely loves his motorsport. He can drive. I mean, what a guy.
I still believe that we'll see him on a grid of something racing at some point.
I hope so.
Yeah.
He's quick
enough. Do you reckon he'll do it under pseudonym, though?
No.
He'll do it.
No, he'll come as him.
Yeah.
Like he'll come. He deserves to do it as him.
I think so.
Yeah. And he's quick enough. Do you know, he, like what we did with him on F1, you think we did nearly 2 years of filming. He had 2 years of coaching with us at all sorts of tracks around the world. Not once do you look at him and think, oh, he's faltered here. Or, he was just a true professional.
Wow.
And, you know, I can probably say I had more shunts than he did.
Really?
So, yeah. But,
which I suppose is design, because you're the one that's pushing those limits to find where they are.
Yeah, we had to push boundaries, you know, like, and we did, you know, and we made it look good. I have to crash some cars, unfortunately.
Of course, yeah.
For my job. And that is the hardest bit, though.
I bet.
To be fair, I have never been so scared in my life than when you do a crash and when you know it's coming. Like when you crash a racing car, you don't really know it's coming, do you?
Yeah.
You crash on a film set, you sit there and they're waiting for light. I'm like sat in a car strapped in, ready to go for a crash. And they're like, oh, just wait, the light's not right. I'm like, and then the jaws of life come past and I'm like, oh, I'm not getting cut out of this. Like, you know, and I tell you, like, the film industry, those people that jump off buildings, set themselves on fire, do all of those incredible fight scenes, they are so talented. But the similarities of motorsport and the film industry are so close because how hard they train, their professionalism, how, you know, every day they wake up and their goal is to be the best at what they do. And I think that's why we fit into that world as well, is that like when we go and drive the cars on set, it's like, yes, you're not doing a lap time, but every point, every apex or every camera that you've got to get to, it's like doing a quali lap.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the most insane buzz, you know, when you get in a car and they say action and you're wheel to wheel, bashing, crashing. It's just, it's an amazing fix for me. Like,
did you have a struggle though with the patience? It's always struck me with people that act. I would love, people that know me know I'm a performer and I would love to get into acting. But the one thing I've always known would be a struggle for me is that patience to go, what I might be doing now, I'm not going to see what this is all about for potentially years, you know, certainly months, if not, you know, over a year. Did you struggle with everything that you were doing? You didn't know until it was finished? No,
because you see it on a monitor. So like when they film, you see it on the monitor and you see it in film quality and roughly what they're going to do. But then, I mean, I did a job in Slovenia and most of the film, everything we did in Slovenia actually didn't make film.
Really?
So there's a lot of footage in films. You can film all this cool stuff and then like, you know, like
on the cutting room floor,
especially the big budget films. The big budget films could probably supply the smaller budget films with all of like their leftover stuff.
There's a whole other film there.
But, you've got to have a lot, but then obviously when they edit it all together, same on F1, there was so much footage that we had and we were like, oh, this looks good or that's a nice move. But to try and put it all into a 2-hour film.
Well, didn't Max tell you that this is only going to be a 5-minute interview that we're putting out? Good luck. But there is also talk of being more to follow. I don't know how much we're allowed to talk about.
I think so. I mean, I've seen reports of Apple have said that it'll be a sequel.
I'd love it.
You know, and I think there is. I think motorsport at the minute is booming. I think you look at Le Mans, the grids are full. You know, you look at F1, it's probably got the biggest audience it's ever had. You know, Drive to Survive has done that well.
Of course it has.
You know, the fan base is definitely different, but hopefully the more these films, I think the film is more authentic than say like a Drive to Survive, and people will see what especially the Daytona sequence. Like I love the Daytona sequence, and not that I was in, like obviously I was there doing it, but not just because of that. I think it also shows the variety of motorsport. And I think hopefully that then filters down into people that live local to Combe will go, oh, there's a race on this weekend. I love watching that film. Let's go and watch a race, you know. And I think hopefully if they did a second one, they might push the boundaries a little bit more. Obviously, there's always limits on what you can do, but, you know, bring motorsport. As more motorsport films are better in my eyes.
I agree.
You know, and, you know, there's been some fantastic ones and I think there'll be some bigger ones to come.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, sadly, we just lost Robert Duvall, but Days of Thunder. I mean, it's not a patch on what the clever effects in the F1 movie, but as a movie, it got my attention.
Yeah.
So good entertainment as well.
And then Talladega Nights, like when you look at that, like, you know, but Days of Thunder, there is again, there's rumours of a Days of Thunder 2.
Yes. Well, if he's done the Top Gun 2, then why not? I mean, it's doable.
It is doable. It is doable. You know, but again, all these racing films, even if they are like Talladega Nights, where a bit of humour there.
Well, I said this about the F1 movie. What I thought was brilliant about it, we're talking about it from a motorsport fan perspective, but it was brilliant because you could watch that film not caring or knowing anything about motorsport before or after, and maybe potentially not even after, but would still enjoy that film.
Exactly.
I thought that was a clever line that they trod there.
And that's, you know, when you look at Jerry Bruckheimer, he's got Joe involved, he's got all the right people. Yeah. They've literally ticked a box on how to do it properly. And it, like you said, the music was amazing. Like you say, the sound, like the storyline was not so motorsport based that people wouldn't understand it if they had never watched motorsport before. And that was a very big thing. Like, you couldn't have them getting penalties and all of the F1 terminology.
Too much detail.
You needed to simplify it all. And I think there was a fine balance of keeping true motorsport fans there.
Yeah.
But like when we first there, you've got Netflix, you've got F1 true F1 hardcore motorsport fans, Netflix, people that have never watched, trying to put all of this together to make something that was cool.
I mean, on a lesser scale, I've always said that we have to do that in the commentary, is that we've got people like me, like the absolute anoraks that know so much about it. And you've got those that it's their first ever time to come. And it's like, if I just address to them, then these people go, I've no idea what you're on about. But if I did too much there, I could condescend the experts. Yeah. And you have to be really clever the way that you try to embrace all parties in it during the course of a whole day of doing it.
And I think you can see that how well you do your job. It's like when we go round at the end on the car, every single person's on their feet. They understand who's where, who's done what. And I think that's,
sometimes we make up the stories and subplots, but that's fine as well.
But sometimes you've got to keep the audience embraced. It's a show.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, motorsport is a show. You've got to entertain, and that's, every last detail is part of that.
Which is why you love coming here in these cars, is that it's your escape and it's entertainment, and you're putting on a show. And you do embrace that part as well, don't you?
Yeah, of course. I'm not going to lie. Like, when I go around here and I'm doing quick lap times and I know that people on the outside are enjoying it, that's a great moment for me. And it makes me proud of what I've done. Those years where I've had to miss a year of racing, or, where you think your whole career's gone, those kind of times, like standing on that podium car going round and waving at everyone, that makes those years better. Yeah. And they are tough when you've been there, but then now I smile every day and be like, I've got an amazing career that I absolutely love, and coming to Combe makes my year, to be honest. When I come here, this is like my tick box. Yeah,
and you may be from up in Melton Mowbray, but you're adopted one of ours, I'm afraid.
I don't mind that. I'll take that one.
You are.
I'll be here many years to come.
The 2005, the 2011 version of you, so 2 dips in everything. Does that version of you still pinch yourself at all these things that we've just been discussing today?
100%. And it just shows, like, I've come from a background where, I've probably not got the budgets that other people have got, and every day was tricky when I was growing up, but I always had a goal of driving cars for a living. Yeah. And my career has gone that way, it's gone that way, it's gone upside down, it's gone backwards, it's gone forwards. And I've never, ever given up on that, driving a car for a living. If you'd told me when I was 10 years old that I'd be on these films, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
And it
wasn't even a dream. That was the thing, wasn't it? The film bit.
Even to that day, when I met Wade on that day at Silverstone, even then the penny didn't drop for me that this could be a career. Like, I was just doing my job coaching for him, and, I made a great friend. Yeah. When I went to work and I saw the detail that these films put in, and the amount of, you know, that was when I was like, wow, this could be a career for me. And that whole world came.
And you've had to learn a lot and develop a lot, because you didn't, as you said, you were no longer just doing those stunt pieces that go from here to here and make it look dramatic. You know, I love the story where you're saying that you guys were, there's the script, right? How do we bring this to life? And you were having to do, and what are the angles? And I forgot a point, was that you suddenly turned around and said, right, we need one of us in the pool of drivers to be behind, going at the same speed as us, but they're just camera cars.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all they are.
And that's like, you know, Duncan Taffy, who I raced against my whole career, who's a great part of our team, was like, he then became the camera car driver that had cameras right low down on the nose, on the rear, that, you know, we'd just we'd dance around Duncan effectively on a track, and he was driving at our speeds.
Yes.
And, you know, that was like, we made that happen. They were just going to have a camera car there doing 100 miles an hour in the end.
It's like, that ain't going to work.
We had one of us doing it to make it another step. And that's
the point. You've punched through that wall of not just being a stunt driver, that you're very much involved in the whole production.
I think, being a racing driver growing up, you want to do a good qualifying lap or to do a good race, you have to understand how the car works, how to get the maximum out of the tyres, how to, you know, what the wind direction is, what the track conditions are. All of these ingredients make you something a little bit special. So when I went into the film industry, I was like, right, how does it all work? How does camera people work? How do special effects work? And I also now work for special effects. I was saying earlier that I drove on Masters of the Air, that B-17. So I potted around at 10 miles an hour for a year, taxiing a B-17 with special effects. And you know, like, not only did I drive now, I then go and drive these big rigs for special effects. And because obviously not every film is going to be a driving film. No. So you have to then think out of a box on how to make that career work. But, you know, I think from motorsport, when you bring all of those aspects into the film world and you learn, you know, you don't just come in there and go, right, I just want to drive. I'm like, how do I make myself the best? How do I make myself understand, make every director want to go, right, I want Craig Dolby. You know, and that's what I do when I race. You know, if I want to be on pole, you've got to put all that effort in. Well, I went to the film industry and was like, right, I need to now push. You know, I need to make sure that not only when I drive, but even when I'm out the car, I'm in the right place. I go and get 100%. Coffee when I'm, you know, when you're first in the industry, you go and you make cardboard boxes for people to jump off a building into. And I'm watching people make cardboard boxes, like, they make a cardboard box in like 3 seconds. I'm like 5 minutes, like trying to fold a cardboard box. But you could see the attention of detail that all the other people in the industry had put in. And I was like, right, I've got to join that and then, you know, go one more. And that's the buzz, you know.
I've always, I live by a phrase, is that keep pushing, and as you break through a door, whatever that happens to be, now be looking around to see what other doors you can now see. I mean, I always think back to when I first got taken on as part of the commentary team here. That just blew my mind. Oh my, like you said, couldn't believe there was a career. It never crossed my mind. I nearly didn't even apply for it, because I was like, that's what other people get to do, not me. And you must have had that one as well.
100%.
But by going for it, be part of the team, that suddenly I got more commentary gigs, but then I'm a voiceover artist. I'm hosting a black tie events. I'm, you know, presenting on radio and doing all of these. And that's because every time you go through, feel proud of what you've achieved, but now go, right, what can I see now? Who should I be speaking to here? And it's always be looking, always be pushing. You never know what is possible.
Exactly. You open one door, it opens
exactly
two.
That.
You open 2 doors, it opens 4.
Correct.
You know, and you have to be ready to adapt and embrace that. And I've managed, out of a career that kind of went away in motorsport, I still drive cars for a living. And I get to drive some pretty cool stuff, get to do some pretty cool stuff.
And be friends with some ridiculously amazing people.
Yeah, get to travel the world, be friends with some amazing people, have that lifestyle that, you know, I've always dreamed of growing up racing. I still get to drive and still get to have fun.
And that's a key one, is that we both work very hard in our different directions. Yours considerably more glamorous than mine, but it's like still pushing hard, but we will stop and enjoy ourselves. And we are very lucky here at Castle Combe that includes us, you coming here and playing with these cars in front of us. We also thank Nigel Mustall for facilitating that.
I owe him everything for still being able to race, because I think genuinely, if it wasn't for Nigel, I probably wouldn't get in race cars, bar on like a film set like F1.
Yeah.
But Nigel actually brings my buzz still to life. You know, like and
he's one of our own as well.
When you talk to Nigel about racing here back in the day, like he is definitely 100% one of Castle Combe's gems.
Definitely.
You know, and
well, listen, mate, I could carry on talking to you forever and ever and ever. And there's probably so many things that you'll remember afterwards that we could have spoke about. But you know, hopefully we'll get more chances to speak to you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you very much for breaking the record once and coming back, hopefully this year, 2026, to break it again, take it back again, as we know, with what could be a very interesting car that's going to be here.
Yeah,
but
fun.
Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Craig Dolby. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.